Welcome, everyone, to a very special final episode of Gameinformer's Super Replay of Killer7. I'm Andrew Reiner, joined again by our loyal crew here, Joe Juba.
Hey.
Cyril Vasquez.
Hello.
Leo Vader.
Thank you.
And then we weren't lying to you. In the studio, in Gameinformer's headquarters, Suda51. Hello.
Hi, hello. Hello.
Right there. You got your own camera. So, Suda, you are the writer and director of Killer7. Cyril, why don't you start playing? Take us back to the first day of creating Killer7. Can you walk us through the inception of that?
ある意味、僕と三上さんの間で、二人の中で出来上がったのがキラー7ですね。はい。
So at the time, I was working closely with Shinji Mikami, and I would visit him down in the offices in Osaka. And when I do that, I would bring various game ideas. And one day, I happened to bring the game idea for Killer7, and he looked at it and he said, "Yep, this one. This is the one. This is the one we're going to do." And it grew out from there.
Now, there's an urban legend that I just created myself right now, that all of the outfits in the game are based on your own wardrobe. Is that true?
Oh, yeah. Maybe. Yeah.
The characters do dress pretty sharp in this game.
このゲームのデザインがすごくかっこいいですね。
ありがとうございます。いや、本当にこのアートの方向性が固まった時に、ちょっと他とは違うゲームができるんじゃないかなっていう予感がすごくしてましたね。
Yeah, that's one thing that we really thought carefully about too, is to differentiate the game by means of the art. And so a lot of care once they decided what direction we wanted to take with the art, it kind of turned into this, and it was well received and people liked it.
So we've been having a lot of fun at playing through, seeing all of Travis's different shirts. How did you just like have a piece of paper and just write down a bunch of crazy things to put on his shirts?
While developing the game, I'd be playing it, looking at the debug builds and things like that. And I figured, this could use a punch up, or this could use something a little more interesting. So kind of a good way or a bad way, as it were, adding a lot of extra stuff. It really came around during the whole development process.
Cool.
Now, Killer7 is Cyril's favorite game of all time. You're sitting next to your biggest fan ever. I don't know if you knew that.
Yeah.
No pressure on you.
Thank you.
But one question we've been asking is, will this series ever come back? Do you think you'll ever revisit the Killer7 universe?
So for those of you, we're recording this a little bit before the announcement, but actually by the time this comes out, we will have announced the PC version of Killer7 coming out.
Yeah.
Headed to Steam, right?
Yeah,
Steam only, yeah.
Yeah, Steam only.
Nice.
Very cool.
で、今回カプコンさんが OK を出してくれて、で、パブリッシャーは2社が、担当します。
And obviously Capcom gave us the okay for this, and NIS America will be publishing it.
Cool. And translating for this, by the way, is Alan Costa, producer at NAS. Sorry for not introducing you earlier.
No problem. Hello, everybody.
Killer7 has a very distinct play style. It's kind of on rails, very focused on kind of aiming and shooting. Was that always the design, or did you think of different means of locomotion for your character?
So yeah, actually it was pretty early on that this was decided. One of the big things we paid attention to was creating a game that really fit with the hardware. And one thing you'll remember that this game originally came out and was developed for GameCube. And something characteristic of the GameCube controller is the huge A button. And so we wanted to really utilize that, especially for movement. We thought that would be a good way to do it. And then once you actually get into the shooting and things like that, having a more first-person perspective was something that was, definitely there from the very beginning.
One thing I was wondering about is, so we were talking before about how you had like good memories of this game. But I imagine looking back at any project after it's done, especially like this far after it came out, is there anything about this game that when you look back on it now, you sort of like wince a little bit, do like, ooh, I wish we'd done something different there?
One regret, if you want to call it that we've had was, again, as you know, we developed the GameCube version originally. At the same time, another company was developing the PS2 version of the game. And looking back at that, I really wish that we could have done the PS2 version as well in-house.
Oh, why is that?
The loading times are fairly long, and overall the specs for the game kind of are lower than what they would be for the GameCube version.
Okay.
そこはゲームキュー版の方がすごく快適なので。
Yeah,
まあちょっと長いんですよ、これ。
the GameCube version really
GameCube
is
すぐ
like the one.
すぐ
And like, for example, we're looking at it right now. That's quite a long loading time, whereas the GameCube version would be very, very quick to change.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Sorry, we're not looking at the GameCube one. It's easier for us to play PS3 games or PS2
そう
games.
そうそう。ただPS 版出したからこそ、キラー7は結構売れたので。
But the truth of the matter is, because we released the PS2 version, the game sold a lot. So there's that.
That's true.
And take us through the design and inspiration of the Smiths. I mean, they're such a cool collection of characters.
So because of the scale of this project, at the beginning, this wasn't something that we decided to do everything in-house for. It was something that we wanted to be very collaborative on. And so we had various people introduced to us to help out with this project. In particular for the art, there's a person named Mr. Miyake, who was formerly of Sega. And he was the artist for this game. And I worked very closely with him. We'd look at photographs together, we'd talk, and we'd come up with the characters. And something about him is that he's really good, but he's really fast too. He can really come up with designs quickly. And so working with, and he's the kind of person that when he designs, he like gathers energy into himself and then releases it into the work that he creates. And so the process for that was very good, and the design came out really good.
And who's your favorite of the Smiths? Can you just pick one?
いや、難しいな。
That is very difficult.
コヨーテはすごく好き
But
で。
Coyote, he's really into
で彼のストーリーも、まあ実は一人一人のストーリーが、
Originally, they were all supposed to have their own stories. Unfortunately, through the process of development, those had to be cut. But really, I really like Coyote's story. Dan's kind of like the main one, the story that really pops the most, probably. But equal and just as good as that is probably Coyote's story too.
And with Killer7 coming back now on Steam, is there potential you could maybe explore those stories in a sequel?
Yeah, I mean, at the moment, I'm most excited about the fact that we could just get to do this. It's something I wanted to do for a long time. And I'm really appreciative to Capcom for giving us the go-ahead. And, hopefully the sales are good and people like it. And then we can, think about something else within this world and explore that.
Cool.
で、この時一緒に、三上さんと、
obviously Mr. Mikami and then Mr. Kobayashi, the producer of the game, who still actually works at Capcom. If, things go well, it'd be really cool to work with him again and maybe create like the complete version of the game or something like that.
Yeah. Well, you'd mentioned some things being cut sort of during the course of development. So what do you know about Coyote's story that isn't conveyed in the game that you can tell us?
For Coyotes, originally the idea was to have him die in the middle. And then everybody else also, I mean, like Coyote, she had her own story too, but yeah, Coyote's arc was he dies.
So,
About 2/3 of the story content was actually cut. Yeah.
Whoa.
So it was actually pretty voluminous in terms of what was originally there.
なのでカットシーンが大体、
Now, if you were to put all the cutscenes together, it's about an hour's worth of content, right? Originally, it would have been about 3. 3 hours worth of content. So yeah, as you can see, that was a lot of volume.
Were there any gameplay ideas that got cut, or was it all story segments?
One thing was actually the size of the map. Originally, the feedback we got that it was a little bit too large. And so we kind of abbreviated it.
So, also speaking about cutscenes, one thing we've been enjoying watching them, partially because they're so fun to try to decipher. Yeah, they're not as straightforward as a lot of video game cutscenes are. So I guess my question is like, do you have fun watching people try to sort of figure out the message or piece together the events after a game's come out like that?
Yeah, to talk a little bit first about how I write these games. There's a feeling within me, that everything doesn't necessarily need to be put out, so obviously. Even in real human interaction, some things are left unsaid, and sometimes people when they speak, there's this feeling maybe that they have that isn't directly expressed into what they're saying. And so as I created these characters and wrote them, there's this feeling in my mind of what they're thinking and things like that comes out into the game that isn't necessarily, I'm not conveying necessarily what they're thinking to you. I'm just putting that out there in terms of what you see on the screen and how the story progresses. And because real life's not like that, and it's not so simple, or is like that rather, and it's not so simple, I really enjoy creating works like that. And then in terms of how fans take that and how they react to it, honestly, I can't say that I know too much because I don't follow really as well as I could the Western, theories and things like that. I have read some, and I kind of pick up the atmosphere of what they're thinking, but unfortunately, because I'm not really able to read that, I don't really know exactly what they're saying. But I do obviously appreciate the fact that my games are being discussed and talked about.
One of my questions that I had is, so one of the big symbols is the moon, which shows up between each of the chapters and is sort of colored differently. Could you walk us through sort of like how you came up with that idea? Because it seems like such a weird transitional, like the way it moves in and out of the screen. Like how did you come up with that whole sort of image?
In all my games, kind of, I have this fascination, I guess you could call it, with the moon. It comes up fairly often, and even without me necessarily thinking like I'm going to put it in there, and it happens to come out, and that's kind of what happened with this one. I guess one thing you could say is that the moon is always watching, and so that's kind of what that represents.
Are you a werewolf?
Oh, yeah, maybe. 僕ね、毛が濃いんですよ、めちゃくちゃ。
He said, well, I am pretty hairy, actually, so.
そうかな。俺
It's like, I wonder if the camera can pick this
毛が
up.
すごく濃くてね。ひょっとしたら狼人間かもしれな
He
い。
said, yeah, I might be a werewolf.
Oh, are we comparing?
Yeah, me
I
too.
think we got, yeah.
We all might be.
Anyone with hair is a werewolf.
So you said you had to cut a lot of content from your game. Is that pretty typical for your projects, that you kind of scale it down to what really matters? Or was this one a little bit more extraordinary in how much was cut?
Yeah, Killer7's probably the one that got cut the most.
いやいや。まあ、とにかくやっぱりスケジュールが、まあ、若干遅れたっていうのもあるので。
And, part of the reason for that was that the schedule was a little bit behind
あ
schedule.
とやっぱり予算内にしっかり収めるっていうところで、まあ、やっぱりカットしましょうっていうことで。
And, of course, there's budgetary concerns. So, being within those budgets really important too. So, that's what it led to. Has one memory kind of talking with, I have one memory of talking to Mr. Mikami. And he was going over what I'd written. And he said, Suda-san, this feels a little bit long. Why don't you go ahead and revisit this? So I did, and I went back and I revisited it, and when I brought it back to him, he said, this is longer. And I ended up writing more than what I had originally
大
written.
丈夫かなって思ったんですけど。
And he said, I said, Mikami-san probably thought like, what's with this guy?
Was there, I mean, since this was sort of a collaboration in some sense between you and Mikami over at Capcom, do you feel like you learned anything about sort of making games as you worked with him?
So one thing really characteristic of this game is this is the first time we at Grasshopper made a game that wasn't a visual novel. This is the first game to have, you could call it maybe an action adventure game. And so because, we didn't really have the experience working on action games, one thing I learned from Mikami-san, for example, the movement speed was a lot slower. And Mikami-san said, no, you really need to pick up the pace here. Another thing was the reload speed. That was also increased by several magnitudes of order. So he really taught me, how to make an action game. And he really polished the action aspects of this game. And even to this day, I guess you could say the basis of how we at Grasshopper approach action games is kind of the fundamentals come from Mikami-san and what he taught us through this process.
Yeah, because I feel like since then you've made something like Normal Heroes, Shadow of the Damned, a lot more action-oriented games. Did you guys feel like you needed to make that shift over the course of the, because you used to make visual novels and then you started making action games?
Absolutely. There was the feeling that we really should shift over to action games.
So as we were playing this, for some reason, we really gravitated towards the character Christopher Mills.
Oh,
We
wow,
cheer
okay.
when he's on screen and stuff.
Yeah.
So
Wow, 本当に。
what's his life like at home? So when he's not like giving you tips on the bridge and things like that, what does he do in his free time?
ああ、ミルズはなんだろうな。多分こうね、作るのが好きなので。
He likes gardening,
Oh,
やっ
good,
ぱり花を育てたりとか、植物
raising flowers,
を
plants,
すごくちゃんと丁寧に色切ったりとか。 は
cutting them so that they grow properly. And things
Real
like that.
green thumb on that guy.
Yeah, that makes sense. Very meticulous.
You can do it all.
い。いやはい。で、彼はコーヒーよりも紅茶が好きなので。
And he prefers tea to coffee.
紅茶を飲んでますね、ガーデンで。
So in his garden, he's drinking drinking the tea.
I like this. Thank you.
I think we have the basis for the sequel.
Oh, yeah.
So you said you brought Mikami a script. Do you usually start your projects with kind of a finished story, or have you shifted more to an idea and building upon it?
いや、そうですね。
In terms of how I create games, it's really both. There's times where the concept comes first, and then the game or the script flows from that, and then there's the opposite where the script is first, and then afterwards we kind of figure out some of the other aspects of it. For this one in particular, actually, kind of the system came first, and then the script kind of flowed from what the game systems were going to be.
So at what point did you sit down and write all of the words that are on Travis's shirts?
そうですね。
This came out during debug, actually.
Oh,
So
yeah?
during debug, when I'd be watching this and playing this, I would say, okay, in this scene, he needs to have this on his shirt. And that's where it came from.
Hey,
最初は全部ハッスルっていうやつだけだったんですよ。ハッスル
Sorry. At first, wow, that was weird. At first, all of his shirts said hustle.
だけど全部ハッスルだと面白くないから、じゃあもうシーンごとに全部変えようって言ってスタッフに頼んで
But
変えましたね。
having hustle on every scene is not particularly interesting. And so the staff, had the idea of, hey, what if every scene he had something different? And so that's why we did it.
We actually have a special surprise for you. Leo, can you just come out here and be on camera for a second and show Suda?
おう何
リオさんの T シャツを。
いやいやいや。ああ、そうなんだ。おお、セクシュアル。確かに彼なんか変な服着てるなと思ってたんですよ。
Yeah, when I came in this morning, I thought, this guy's really wearing a weird T-shirt.
But you hadn't recognized it?
気づかなかった。
I did not at
確
first.
かにそうだ。
But yeah, there it is.
So one of the people that was watching this, one of our viewers, sent that in to us as it was one of the shirts that Travis was wearing.
わあ、やれ
Yeah.
本当にすごい嬉しいね。
That's awesome. That makes me really happy.
Oh, what's he wearing right here?
今これなんだ今なんだろう
Could this be sexual?
I wonder.
あ、これがセクシャルだ。
Oh
違うんだ
no,
これ違うか。
that's slow
こ
talk.
れ見えない。スロートーク。あ、スロートークだ。なるほど、スロートーク。
hey, Surreal,
Yeah.
do you have any lingering questions about the story of this game? Like, this is your chance to get
He's
things
played this
answered.
game like a billion times.
あ
I mean, did you have like a particular film or anything that you were inspired by when you made sort of? Because there's a lot of movies that sort of have that sort of end game twist. Was there any particular one you looked to? Was like, here's how I want to deliver sort of the end game twist.
For the ending in particular, that actually changed in the middle of development.
Yeah,
It was supposed to end at 5, but actually we added a little bit more.
and at Act 5, basically.
イン
Yeah.
プットか、インプットだ。うん
To directly answer your question, there was actually no particular film that I referenced making when I made this game. Actually, it went so far as I wanted to focus so much on this game that I did a complete media blackout for myself. I didn't watch any movies. I didn't play any other games.
There it
あ、
is.
来た
I focused
来た来たセクシャル来たナイスセクシャル来た
focused solely on the creation of this game.
When you were writing the story, there's sort of the two undercurrents between
Yeah.
like Harmon and Kunlan as sort of like these metaphysical beings, and then there's sort of the other story of Emir as an assassin.
So this
Which one of those stories do you think did you come up with first, and then, or did you sort of come up with them at the same time?
Kunlan and Harmon came first. And one thing, when I was creating this game, I remember talking to Mikami-san, and he said, this is a game that's going to be for the West. And so, think of it like that. And so I did, and it was actually my first time in creating a game that was set in the West. And so I really thought carefully about what kind of things that I could do. And one thing I thought was that I couldn't really portray the West from the perspective of the West because I don't know it. So I had to portray it from the perspective of a Japanese person looking in, which is kind of where, that all comes out. Obviously, Japanese characters comes out, Japan comes out. It's particularly the AMPO agreement that America and Japan had was set to expire around that time period. And that's something that also kind of influenced it. And so you kind of have the conflict between Kunlun and Harmon is kind of representative of that in a way. And there's also, a character on the Japanese side, and they're doing things too, and that's, again, the Japanese perspective. So that's kind of, and it ended up being a triangle, how all these stories kind of link and fit together. And so, that's what came out of it.
Leo, is it time to get a little crazy?
I was thinking the same thing.
Is it time to visit the questions that we asked ourselves during, or the list that we made as we played through this game?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the background is we've been sitting and playing this game for what? It took us 12 hours or
13
so. So during the course of that, even though Surya is playing, the conversation, we're not laser focused on the game the whole time, and we sort of go off in some weird directions sometimes.
So let's give a couple topics and see if Suda would like to participate and maybe answer some of these with us.
Yeah. Oh. Yeah.
Let's do it.
So first off, which famous person would you let eat you?
最初の質問は、
Yeah.
有名人で、もし須田さんが食べられるんだったら、誰食べてましょう？
俺が食べられる。俺が食べられる。
Wait, they're eating me?
Yes.
One famous person.
And you can interpret the scenario or you can interpret the scenario how you want. So maybe you're alive, maybe you're
これは
not.
もうまだ生きてる。
Wasn't it also part of it they would have dinner with you and then eat you?
But there's a variety of scenarios.
Yeah, if you want.
でもし食べられるんだったらやっぱ女性に食べられたいな。
Well, first off, if I'm going to be eaten, I want it to be by a girl.
やっぱ好きな女優さん、アメリカの女優さんでいるんですけど、ちょっと名前出てこないんですけど、
There's a particular American actress that I like. I can't think of the
500日のサマーっていう映画出てて、その後テレビシリーズ。
500 Days of Summer?
Zoe Deschanel?
ああ、そう。
Yeah, her.
Okay, good.
彼女
Good
に
answer.
食べられたい
What were some on our
How
list?
about her?
Oh, Matthew McConaughey, Ray Wise. Who can remember?
マシュ
わかんない。
男だね。
A guy, huh?
He's a cool guy.
いや、来るがい。
Very cool.
So the next question is, what
Yeah.
creature, fictional or real, would you like to dissect?
何を書いてる？
解剖。
Translator's note, I'm so happy I knew that word.
解剖するんだったらやっぱカービィを解剖したいですね。どうやって食べてるのか。カービィの体は。
I'd really like to dissect Kirby. I really want to know how that guy eats.
いや。
That is a good one.
How's that guy eating?
I imagine that's almost like a balloon, right? Like it's just
そう。いや、でも解剖してる最中に食べられちゃうそうな気がするから。
But I kind of feel like, as I'm dissecting him, I'd get eaten by him.
そう。
Like in the middle.
As
of
you're inside.
Yeah,
Oh.
inside, yeah.
that's dangerous.
危ない。
That's a good answer. I like that
で
one.
もすごいいい答えです。
By the way, just to clarify, we went to some very dark places as we were recording.
Yeah, I
そう
don't.
いう前に話すときに結構ダークなところ行ったらしいんで。
あ、そうなんだ。わ。
Is that so?
What did we want to dissect? I don't even remember what our answers were for that one. Do you?
I think you said a ghost.
幽霊。なるほどね。
Okay.
何が出てくるんだろう。
I wonder what would come out of that.
All right, next question.
Yeah.
I know neither of these concepts are especially popular in Japan, but
本当に聞いてないんですけど、
I wanted to know if you think a drive-through meatloaf restaurant is a good idea.
ミートローフってわかります？
ミートローフなんかわかるわ。
なんか例えばテイクアウトドライブスルーミートローフ屋さんがいいアイデアだと思います。どういうこと？ドライブスルー。
ドライブスルーでミートローフ。いいアイデアと思うかどうか専門
So you're in your car, but you get a meatloaf. You gotta.
あ、それが日本で関係なく
In Japan or just in
関係
general?
なく
In general.
Yeah.
It'd be
一
worldwide.
般的に
世界中の。
世界中絶対成功しないでしょうよ。
That would totally fail, I think.
Well, you're doomed, Leo.
I agree to disagree.
Leo put all of his money into this.
さんはもうお金をもうすべてのセービングと貯金を出そうと思っている。
本当にそんなにもうミートローフ好きなの
Really? Do you like meatloaf that much?
He does.
わお。
Yep.
なんかミートローフあんま食べたこと
Full
ない。
menu.
Like, I haven't really eaten meatloaf that much.
It's great.
美味しいですよ。
オッケー、食べる今度。
He's like, I'll give it a try.
Thanks.
All right, next question.
Yep.
Who is the most powerful cereal mascot from, a box of cereal?
Yeah, I don't know. Is this a thing in Japan? Do you have like Captain Crunch,
Not really, but
Rice Krispie? Like we have mascots on our cereal.
Well, it'll be interesting to get the Japanese perspective on this.
Right.
マスコット
In Japan, there's the tiger dude, right?
Yeah, Tony the Tiger. He's over here
あ、
too.
そう。多分アメリカから来てるよね。
Frosted Flakes.
Like, okay, so that's probably from America then. Yeah.
Yeah.
そう、彼が一番強そうっていうか。
He seems like he'd be the strongest, no?
彼しか知らない。
He's like, because, and also that's the
他
only
に
one I know.
いいけど
So
ね。
good one.
It doesn't have to be breakfast cereal either, though, because I know, like,
Yeah.
Like dinner cereal?
like there are all kinds of products in dinner cereal. No, like I know that there are from the times I've been to Japan, it seems like there are lots of things that have various mascots and
That's
stuff.
true.
So like just mascots in
あじゃあ日
general.
本ではマスコットキャラたくさんあるんですか何でも。
ああ、なんでも、す
それ
ごくたくさんある。
をちょっと話題を広げ
OK
て、
いやいやいや
一番強いマスコットは誰？
そうだね。なんだろう、日本で強いマスコット。
Let's
日
see,
本は
Japan.
今、本当マスコットキャラ天国みたいな感じで、
Right
ゆ
now
るキャ
it's
ラっ
like-
ていうのがすごく流行ってて
It's。like mascot character heaven over there.
で今都道府県それぞれの町のこうイメージしたゆるキャラがいっぱいいるんですよ。
So actually, in all the prefectures of Japan, there's like a mascot character for those, and sometimes the towns in them.
Oh,
で年に1回チャンピオン毎年チャンピオン。
And then every year they choose a champion.
what?
What?
Seriously,
It's like a
seriously.
battle royale of these.
本当。
This is seriously.
They stole our idea.
Wow.
And the most famous is from Kumamoto Prefecture. His name's Kumamon,
くまモン。まあ、くまモンが多分一番やっぱクマなので。
and he's a bear. So
He's a sleepy
means
bear.
なんか眠いやつですか？
眠くないすごく目パッチリしてる。
No, he's not sleepy at all. His eyes are like
あ、くまモンこれ。
on fire. There he is. There he is. It's
Oh man!
こいつは凶暴ですよ。
He's like he's a rough guy.
いや
Yeah, I've seen him around.
くまモン
He's vicious, vicious.
So when they choose a champion, is that just like let's choose which one we like, or is it which one would win in a fight?
Well, it's like a competition. They dance,
あ特徴だったりとか。
like their special skills,
そう。なんかそういうのでコンテストで
and they have this
目立った
contest.
人の勝ち。
And then the ones that stand out the most.
そう。なんかね、どこの水戸かなんかのキャラかなビヨーンって伸びるんですよ、すごい。
And then
3メーターぐらいまで。
the city of Mito has like this one that can grow
納
like
豆のやつ、そう。
it's
Base
natto.
was-
You're familiar with natto? Like it's like grows when you eat it.
Yeah.
そう。
This guy like meow like grows.
それはすごく、それも人気。
It's pretty popular too.
Okay, so a follow-up question to that. Let's say you were given the chance to have one of your characters from Killer7 represent like one of these products and get entered in this contest. Who would it be, and what product would it be for?
可愛いんだけども、
Travis is good.
数字9
He's
の
got the style.
そう、最初、発売の時に、まあ、最近は少ないんですけど、ほら、なんかいろんなものを初回特典でつけたりとかするんですね、おまけで。
When the game first went on sale, there's
で、この
like
時
various things that you'd
そう、発売
add
の
to
時
it.
に、カプコンさんにお願いしたのは、数字9の、キーホルダーみたいなやつ。
It comes as like a little bonus when you buy the game. And when the game came out, Capcom we had Suzy Q, like a
数字、
フォーム
顔だけの
just
キ
her
ャラクターがい
face.
ると思うんですけども。
You know Suzy Q in the game? Yeah, so she came out as like a bonus thing we'd give to people when they bought the game.
Oh.
So, yeah.
Next question, Leo.
All right. If you had the power to rewind time, what would you use it for?
全く考えたことないですね。
Yeah, think about it. It's
I
a
have never
powerful
thought about this one
proposition.
before.
これはすごい強いんだよ。
いや、確かに。
You could do all sorts of crazy stuff, funny stuff, good stuff.
いいこともできるし。
Oh, the important thing about it though is that like you yourself still age or like your body goes forward. So if you just eat a meal and then you rewind time, you're still full.
If I had the ability to rewind
やっぱり
time,
ゲームの中身を作り直すかな、もう一回。
I might revisit my games and change stuff inside of them. You know, add a little bit here and there. And, you know, there's things that obviously I can see now that I couldn't see back then. So being able to go back in time and like talk to my younger self or you know, do that to change it, I might use it for that.
That's a very good and wise answer
Yeah,
to that question.
we were not in that camp.
いやいやいや。
We would have done it for terrible things.
Yeah.
で、彼らが考えた時に、ひどいことばっかり考えてた。すごいまあ
we talked about how we'd go to a restaurant, order their most expensive meal,
一番
and then rewind time so we would have eaten it already, but they wouldn't have served it, so we don't have to pay.
時間を巻き戻して支払いしなくてもいいのアイデア
なるほどね。あ、食べてね。だからそういうことか、食べてお腹いっぱいになって。
So that's why you had the example earlier about like, for example, if you
Exactly.
if you eat but then you rewind time, I'm still full.
そっか。で、それを巻き戻してビールだけ飲んで帰ればいいんだ。
Yeah, and then you can just maybe like you're already in the restaurant, so it's like, no, I'm just gonna get a beer. You hit the beer and you go. Right?
そうですね
Exactly. And then you rewind time and you don't pay for the beer either.
同意してビールも払わない。
なビールぐらい払おうよ。
It's like, hey, let's at least pay for the beers. Come on.
I think you're right. I think that's the right move. Yeah.
面白い。
We have any more, Leo?
Our final question
最
here.
後の質問ね
Final one.
What would you do with only 12 hours to live?
あ、もし12時間しか
And at the end of the 12 hours, you turn into a stone statue wherever you are. So consider that.
So for 12 hours,
とにかく絞って絞って。
I would diet. You know, just really slim down.
めちゃくちゃ腹筋鍛えて。
You know, do a lot. You know, get a nice body going.
Okay.
で場合によっては12時間あればこの贅肉を吸い取ることができるので。
And then if you got 12 hours, maybe you could even do like the fat sucking thing.
本当高須クリニックに行って
Liposuction.
高須クリニックでその贅肉をねこうずっと出してもらって。
And then you know, just get rid of all the junk that you got inside.
で最後固まる時にポーズしっかり決めて。
And then at the very end, as you're changing, pick a really nice pose, a good pose, something like that, like this.
Just like in a park somewhere, like flowers around
公園
you.
とか
おおどこだどこがいいかな
Where? That's a good question.
どこおお確かに場所がね場所大事
Yeah, that's right. The location's incredibly important.
会社だったら嫌だよね
I mean, it'd suck to be in your company, right?
Yeah. Yeah. We talked about finding another statue and pushing it over and then taking that statue's spot.
いやいやそれ素晴らしいアイデア
So that's a really good idea.
Yeah, you're there forever then.
でその後もずっと
そうだから噴水とかによくあるこうスタチューをねどかして
Yeah,
噴水の真ん中に立ってね
Like in fountains and stuff, right? You know, there's like a statue in the middle, something
Yeah,
like that.
yeah. Yep, that was we talked about that for a long time.
I like the dedication to the statue part of just, I'm going to make the best statue possible.
So if that were to happen, like, would you tell any of your like friends or loved ones that it was? Would you go and like say hi, like say goodbye to them? Would you tell them it was going to happen?
ああ家族には言わないとまずいよね
Well, you gotta tell your family, right?
もう家族に言ったらそんなことしてる場合じゃないでしょって多分怒られると思うんだよ
And they'd probably say, you can't do that. You don't have time to do that. This isn't the time to be doing that.
家族と一緒に過ごしなさいって言われると思
And
う
they'd probably say, you need to spend time with us.
Yeah.
So we kind of talked about being troublemakers and how we could inconvenience people as a statue, like in that final moment, like holding open elevator doors, and then you turn into a
エレ
statue,
ベーターの
or standing in the middle of the street.
で、道路のど真ん中に立ったり
And you'd have some kind of lasting effect. They'd eventually like break you down and take you away, but you'd have that moment of fun of inconveniencing people for what, an hour or two or something. What is up with this?
これは何ですかヒロさん
これはねこれなんだろうね
So, actually, the source for this is from Gonagai's famous manga Devilman. There's a character called Jinmin that comes out who has faces all over its body.
で弱点を作ろうと思った時にまあ普通の弱点じゃつまんないから彼女の背中にね人の顔があって
And so, when I was trying to come up with what would be her weak point, I thought, oh, having faces on her back as her weak point would be really interesting, right?
まあ本当打天使のイメージですかね
So it's like
僕の中の新しい打天使のイメージ
It's like a new version of the fallen angel.
Huh, interesting. And for our viewers out there that enjoyed watching Killer 7, they're going to get a chance to play it now on Steam. What else can they expect from you in the near future?
Well, I guess on the subject of remakes and remasters and things like that, the second game that we made was a game called Flower, Sun, and Rain. It came out on PS2 and then it later got ported to 3DS, and that's something I'd love to revisit as well. And of course, Travis Strikes Again is coming out from the Nintendo Switch. That said, the No More Heroes games, Wii isn't probably not set up in most people's houses anymore. It's not really easy to get your hands on, so that's something else I'd like to revisit and take a look at. But yeah, Travis Strikes Again, Nintendo Switch.
Well, that's the end of our show, and thank you again
そうですね。
so much.
こちらこそ、Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And for being a great sport and answering our very strange questions.
いや、とんでもない。いや、でも本当久々見るんですけど、キラーセブン。やっぱり面白いですね、このゲーム。
Said, watching it again, this really is a fun, interesting game, I think.
Oh, it's beautiful.
I agree.
Beautiful art style, very different.
ありがとうございます。
Thank you.
Well, thanks again, and thank you all for watching. We'll see you in the next Super Replay.